Good morning, everyone. Great to see you all. Glad we got Zoom back up and running. It's great to have the auditor with us this morning, Diana DiZoglio. Great to be here with you.
Thank you.
I know a few years ago we had her predecessor, Suzanne Bump, joined us at one of our meetings, explained what went on in the auditor's office and some of the initiatives that she was working on back then. So that's what we hope to learn from you today. So thank you for being here. Thank you for fighting all the snow to get here, and
I know.
And hopefully we'll get you on your way to your next meeting. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rick. And no rush. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. So thank you for the gracious invitation. And thanks to everyone who showed up today. And even those joining virtually, appreciate you coming online. Thank you. Great to see you. My name is Diana DiZoglio. I am your state auditor and have been in Lynn many, many times over the last couple of years. Was here along the campaign trail and have been able to come back since I've been state auditor as well to visit with folks to make sure that we are addressing some of the challenges that are raised to our office. I will oftentimes get some business cards handed to me when we come here for meetings, and that's what we love. We love the opportunity to be out in the community and to get to connect with you face to face, to get to know you so that we can make sure that your issues are addressed in the office of state auditor, keeping our finger on the pulse of what's happening in our local communities. For those who are not aware of exactly what the state auditor's office does, you are not alone. Don't feel badly about that. It is not necessarily the most high profile statewide office, but we are working hard to make sure we get the message out about the great work that the office does on behalf of taxpayers. We are the state's chief accountability office, essentially. A lot of folks, when they think of the state auditor's office, when I walk into the room and I say I'm the state auditor, folks will generally speaking, kind of look at me and say, well, don't audit me. And I have the great pleasure of informing them I do not audit any of you. I actually audit the government for you, the taxpayers, and we make sure that the government, state government in particular, is operating efficiently and effectively. And we work on ensuring that your tax dollars are not wasted or abused. And we do have a unit in our office that combats waste, fraud, and abuse, in particular, our Bureau of Special Investigations, that works alongside of all of our audit teams, which do performance audits of government entities and agencies, and we work to address some of the inefficiencies across state government in an effort to help make government work better. So a lot of folks think about audits and they think bad, right? Because it's, not everyone's throwing pom-poms in the air and cheerleading for the auditors when we come in to agencies and entities. But we in the state auditor's office, we really do view these audits as a good thing and as being helpful. We are not FBI investigators. Our team does not go into state offices and start tossing desks, and making demands. Our auditors go in and they are looking to work with agencies, work with different government entities to help to identify areas where improvement may be needed so that residents across the Commonwealth get the services that they deserve, as all of these government entities are funded with our tax dollars. So we provide that service to you in the community to go in to these state entities and to analyze these processes, these procedures, and to also look at finances and look for ways that improvements may be beneficial to the taxpayer. And then we highlight those things and we produce a report. We put the report out there to everybody, and we make more transparent what's happening in government and solicit your feedback during that entire process. And then make sure that when you get that report, we have a discussion about that, and then, hopefully get to advocate for some of the changes that might be needed in a particular agency. Many times when we do audits of different agencies or entities, they will comply with the audit. They will cooperate with the audit willingly. some seemingly happily, which we always appreciate. And, you know, they'll get to work, generally speaking, you know, on the different issues that we highlight. Sometimes, however, agencies and entities do not necessarily get to work on some of the things that we're highlighting, and some advocacy is necessary. And when we put the report out there to the general public, it will be noted in the report where the particular entity has complied and where they have not yet complied, where they have been a willing participant and cooperated with our requests, and where they haven't cooperated. And if an agency or entity has not cooperated with the results of an audit, many times we will reach out to folks in the community to help to lift up the issue. We'll reach out to folks in the press to highlight the issue, and we will advocate for the findings of that audit to be addressed. We can't do that work without you, obviously. So that's why coming out into the community is so incredibly important. It takes all of us working together to make sure that government accountability occurs. When I ran, the slogan that we used was the people's auditor. And, you know, the reason why I went with the people's auditor is we wanted to make it clear that we are auditing for the people, because there was that you know, issue, like I said, when I was a senator and I'd walk in and say, I'm running for auditor, and it was the whole, don't audit me, please. And I wanted to really make it clear, which it wasn't clear to people, that the auditor's office actually exists as a public service to you. And that we are here to, you know, make sure that government is being held accountable. But because we can't force or require, I should say, that these government entities actually implement any of the recommendations based on our findings, or that they at least find their own way to remedy a challenge that was identified in the report, even if they say, you know, we're not going to necessarily take your recommendation, but we're going to implement this particular strategy or solution in order to address the challenges that you raise. Because we can't mandate that occur, we can only highlight that something is happening in the agency to folks. Again, that's where it really is the case that we need to work alongside of community members like all of you to keep raising those issues to our legislative delegations, which I know, you know, we have great partnerships with, generally speaking, and then to the administration as well. As the administration is, when it comes to these state entities, alongside of the legislature, you know, responsible for making sure that if, you know, a law needs to be changed or if regulations need to be changed, that those things are being addressed in these different state entities. So by working together and partnering with all of you, our office can produce these reports. We can provide information. We can compile that information for you. We can audit and investigate different issues within state entities and organizations. You know, it's again, our hope is that in doing so, we will be able to help make government work better for those it's meant to serve. So I don't know what the interaction is supposed to be like today, but I figured I'd give just a brief overview of what the office does. And I don't know if you wanted me to talk about different audits that we're currently working on, or if we just wanted to go in, because this is a small group and I like the opportunity to have some interaction when it's, you know, able to be done.
I was thinking like some of the audits that you're involved with, you know, some have been publicized, like the legislature and all that, knowing that, you know, why wouldn't you want to be with it? Like, you know, people think they're hiding. So what are some of the audits that you've been involved with, and what kind of changes have that brought about? Yeah, so to your point, Rick, when you say that people think they're hiding, right? I've heard that nonstop, you know, since this discussion has been being had. And a lot of folks don't know how this legislative audit actually came to occur, but I was on the campaign trail when I first had started running for this seat. I was a sitting state senator at the time for the first Essex district in the Merrimack Valley, not too far away. I had parts of the North Shore as well. And
it was raised to me by constituents who had said, well, respectfully, you're a senator, we want the legislature to be audited. And will you commit to auditing the legislature? Because you're a senator, and that would mean you would have to audit, a chamber that you had previously served in. And my response was very simply, yes, of course. It's a state entity. It's subject to the same standards as every other state entity. And why wouldn't we want to work to increase transparency? I remember as a sitting senator and as a sitting rep, I served in the legislature for 10 years. It was incredibly challenging to get access to information that I needed just to be able to do my job, to be able to read bills before we voted on them, for example. Sometimes we got, not even an hour to read and review pieces of legislation that were brought before us that we were expected to vote on before we were expected to vote on them. And if that was happening, and by the way, that's still happening, if that's happening with legislators, what does that say about the ability for everyday working folks in our communities access to what's happening in the legislature right now? It is not transparent, it is not accessible, and it is not as accountable as it should be to taxpaying residents of the Commonwealth. So, I had committed to that, and when I got elected, sought to fulfill that commitment that I made. We are actually still auditing the legislature, even though they are not complying. They've refused to meet with our office. They are the only state entity that has outright refused to meet with the Office of State Auditor. And I just want to clarify that it is the Speaker's office and the Senate President's office that have refused to comply. And they have got the memo out to staff that are under their purview that they are not allowed to speak with us. In fact, the last time I tried to stop by the Senate chamber, which was my former stomping grounds, I went to go hear a speech that was being given by a friend in the Senate. I was invited to come in. They refused to permit entry into just even the space off to the side where unelected folks were able to stand. So for other folks were permitted in. I was not even permitted to enter the chamber where invited guests were permitted to attend. So unfortunately, the Speaker and Senate President are completely stonewalling our efforts to the point where I was even denied access to the place where I formerly served for 10 years as an invited guest. And I find that incredibly disappointing. It's just reflective, though, about how folks are treated when they're seeking transparency and accountability. I do clarify that, just to let you know, because it's not any of your local reps or senators that I've been requesting information from. They are not the ones denying me access to these documents. They do not have access to the documents that I am requesting. And I know that because I was a former senator. I was a former state rep. And I was also in the position of needing to ask for certain things, being denied my requests, and not getting access to information that I needed to be able to do my jobs. So power is incredibly centralized there. And I've been an advocate for many years for the decentralization of that power and for a system of shared leadership. But this audit in particular seeks to make more available to the general public what is happening behind those closed doors on Beacon Hill, to make more transparent those processes, those procedures, and what's going on with the finances, obviously. So we are continuing with our audit, but we are doing so, Rick, without access to documents that we really needed to make the audit more complete and more beneficial to the taxpayers to have that information. We're still moving forward with the audit, just without access to documents that we would be requesting had we had those meetings. And as you know, in my unofficial capacity, I am, well, maybe you don't know, but FYI, in my unofficial capacity, I am simultaneously working on bringing a ballot question to all of you to give you the opportunity to voice your opinion about this, to vote on whether or not you would like an audit of the legislature done on a regular basis by the Office of State Auditor, which is an independently or an independent organization who's able to, would be able to independently audit the state legislature. So that will be hopefully in front of you in November. I am going through another round of collecting signatures in May, and I will be in touch about that for sure, for anybody who's interested in that. But that's what's going on with that. But yes, Rick, that is something that you do hear about a lot. Things that you might hear a little bit less about, the work that we do alongside of folks in the small business community, for example, right? And we're here with the chamber, right?
Right.
So let's talk about that. So I was actually the chair in the Senate of the Community Development and Small Business Committee. And during that time, I had a unique opportunity to really get to work with a lot of my local chambers. In fact, Phil's here in the back and actually was the president of the Amesbury Chamber of Commerce before he came to work in our office. And we had worked with chamber presidents and chamber staff and members on some of the issues and challenges facing our small business community in particular across the Commonwealth. A lot of restaurants came to talk to me during that time because it just so happened that I was chair of that committee during the pandemic shutdown period, which, you know, it was an incredibly challenging time for all of our workers across the Commonwealth. But on our committee in particular, the folks that were contacting me were those small retailers, were those smaller restaurants, and they were having a harder time due to that shutdown because they weren't able to have guests in. You know, we remember folks struggling. I actually was the author of the Cocktails to Go legislation here in Massachusetts. And we fought for that for quite a long time. We were actually one of the first states to draft the legislation and present it, but one of the last ones to actually pass it, unfortunately, due to that legislative process having some challenges, right? Our economic development bill took a really long time to get done. And, you know, we did finally get that done. It was done on a temporary basis at the time. It still is I think temporary. They keep, like, you know, reapproving it and extending it. But point being, during that time, I did get to work on issues like that, right? So I heard a lot about the challenges that our small businesses were facing and have been able to take those challenges that I heard about while I was a legislator and really bring them into the work of the auditor's office to get started immediately on addressing some of those challenges. And I know this is going to be shocking to everyone in the room, but we do have some issues with our unemployment system here in Massachusetts. So yes, so when I do say this, you know, in especially business groups, folks know we've had some challenges with unemployment insurance, our unemployment insurance trust fund, to the tune of the most recent issue where $2.6 billion was spent wrongfully and shouldn't have been spent the way that it was. And, you know, those dollars were lost. And before that, it was roughly around 2.5 or 2.6 billion previously that was sent out in overpayments or fraudulent payments. So we're looking at about $5 billion in our tax dollars that was misspent by an entity in this Commonwealth. And that is a tremendous amount of money, especially considering the budget gaps that we currently have. And the fact that we have a lot of needs across the Commonwealth right now. We talk about the MBTA, we talk about housing, we talk about healthcare, we talk about education, the list goes on. We have a lot of issues and challenges facing our communities. We cannot afford to see billions and billions of our tax dollars misappropriated or misspent. And, you know, our office has taken that very seriously. And we heard from workers across the Commonwealth who are experiencing challenges with you know, their identity getting stolen during that time, with, you know, cases of fraud, cases where they were having an incredibly hard time getting access to their unemployment, especially during that pandemic shutdown period. And our office at the time, in a legislative office, was working to help our constituents and to get them access to that unemployment that they were entitled to. But meanwhile, there was all this fraud going on at the same time. So you had cases where, you know, working folks who were entitled to that unemployment were having an incredibly challenging time getting unemployment, and simultaneously, you know, those fraud cases were occurring. So that was happening. But alongside of that, while this money was going out, what was less talked about, but what was really talked about in my office, because, due to the nature of the position that I had, was the small business owners were coming to us and saying, hey, my unemployment insurance rates are going to go through the roof, right now because of the government, misspending. And now we're going to be expected to cover all of the costs associated with this. And I can't afford it. I'm barely keeping my head above water as it is, as a mom and pop shop, as a small retailer, as a small business owner. And I need to figure out a way to make sure that these costs are covered. And we're hearing that our rates are going to go through the roof right now to cover the costs associated with all of this, misspending. We really need to make sure that that's not happening. We want to get to the bottom of why this was occurring and why this is happening, and shine a light on what the issue was. We also had small business owners come to us and say that thank you so much, I appreciate that, and say that they were conducting interviews, and I don't know if this was anybody in this room, but we had a lot of small business owners saying, hey, I'm conducting interviews. I am having people sign up to come in and to interview for employment, and then they're not showing up. And this is happening on a regular basis. It's happening all the time, actually. And these were small coffee shops in my former little Senate district that I represented. These were small restaurants. And what was happening is the owners themselves were coming in to, interview with people. They were small businesses. They didn't have this big staff to be able to do all these things. And they were repeatedly getting people not showing up. And I know, during that time, a lot of folks were looking for employees and couldn't find employees during that time. And there was this issue with getting people to come back to work, if we remember, right? It was, we have jobs, where is everybody? There were jobs occurring, we just need employees to fill them, right? And we remember when that was a real struggle. The challenge that was presented to us was, where's the accountability in the unemployment system to make sure that when folks say they are coming to a job interview, that they're actually coming to the job interview? Because, we are continuing to pay into unemployment. As the small business person, we are taking all this time to do all of these interviews, and then we're sitting there, nobody's showing up, and we're still continuing to pay into the unemployment for folks that might not even be actually going to their interviews, and getting to continue collecting those benefits while not showing up. So small businesses had approached us and said, we'd really like some accountability in the system. We understand if there are challenges and people can't show up for a certain reason, but if these things are, repeated, there should be a system where that can be seen that it's a repeated occurrence. So our office is auditing the unemployment insurance system right now. We are in the Department of Unemployment Assistance. We are looking for ways to increase transparency and accountability in those processes, in those procedures, to hopefully help to prevent some of the things that we saw during that pandemic shutdown period, especially, and subsequently, as we did, see still, they still had challenges afterwards. Again, we can't force or require that anything get done, but when we do have those findings, we will likely come back to folks in our communities, just like you, who are concerned about these things, and ask for your support in advocating for any necessary changes or some of the challenges that exist to be addressed, by working together with your legislative delegation, and by asking that the administration take action if actions are deemed to be necessary.
On the unemployment front, it's speaking as an employer, to terminate somebody and not have them be able to go collect and impact your experience rating, it seems you almost need to have them commit murder and taken out in handcuffs in order to be able to appeal their unemployment, so that it doesn't make your rates go up. And I've had employee, assault another one, fire them on the spot, have them collect for a year, and which just makes my rates go up. And I know that happens across the state, and some of those rates are significant. You just get those reports every couple of weeks that, you know, this person is still on unemployment. Or somebody that you let go, they go to another job, they get terminated there, and they're back basically collecting on your pool. So did you find anything in that when you were looking at?
So we are currently auditing right now, and due to generally accepted government auditing standards passed down to us from the Federal Government Accountability Office, we are not supposed to be talking about what's going on during the audit in great detail. I can tell you that your concerns are heard loud and clear. You know, we do invite people to come and meet with our audit teams so that they can hear directly from folks who have these concerns, so they can incorporate those concerns into the ongoing audit and make sure that you know, they're aware of the different things that are happening. So I would say points are taken. We'll definitely pass them on to the office. And as you know, Rick, you're more than welcome to come into the office anytime, as is everybody here, and anyone who wants to come in and meet with us for that matter. But I will say, look, the regulations are in place. It's, are they being followed, right? And I think that, you know, to the point of this audit, these audits get to examine what's working, what's not working, where protocols are being followed, where they might not be being followed, and where there are areas for improvement, right? Because, you know, someone like me, I care a great deal about workers' rights and making sure that folks who are entitled to those unemployment benefits, that they are able to get them, if they're entitled to them. Folks shouldn't have to call a legislator's office, for example, like they were forced to do during that pandemic shutdown period, especially. But they shouldn't be forced to call their legislator's office. A lot of people don't know that their legislators exist. You know, they should be able to just get access to a functional system, right? So we are examining those types of things. But then, yes, if somebody is abusing the system, if somebody is using the system wrongfully, you know, certainly we want to make sure that DUA is catching those things and that they're able to more quickly identify those things. I could tell you that in our even office, it's my understanding that people's identities were stolen, and you have people working and working in government, no less. So they're on, you know, clearly getting a paycheck that we can see is happening, but, you know, simultaneously their name shows up as also collecting unemployment. So clearly there are areas where we can see improvements there, because you sit there and say, okay, how are we going to have somebody who's literally working for state government right now and on, you know, taxpayer funded, you know, roles, so to speak, when it comes to receiving a paycheck, but then they're able to, you know, fraud is able to still be committed somehow, and their name is showing up in both those places. There has to be a way to, you know, at some point be able to reconcile those two things. So we are looking for ways to improve the system in that way, to help shine a light on some areas where that might be able to occur. And, you know, we welcome any and all feedback during that process.
Any other questions for the audit?
So it's just passions.
What's that, Chris?
This is very informative. So thank you. When somebody thinks about an audit, they typically think of, oh, my finances are getting checked over. But do you audit other agencies to make sure that they're following through on what their, call it, mission is? And I'll use an example. Have you ever audited the Inspector General's office to see if they follow up on complaints that they receive?
So the relationship with the Inspector General's office is an interesting one. I am still learning in my first year about that relationship. I will tell you that we do partner with the Inspector General's office, but oftentimes I will not know. In fact, most of the time, all the time, I could say, I do not definitely know if the Inspector General is actually investigating something. I understand that that is an ability that the Inspector General has, and that investigations do to a certain extent need to be, you know, not publicized during the investigation so that it does not compromise or jeopardize that investigation. So we all understand that. It does at times make our jobs a little bit difficult in the auditor's office to try to navigate what to look at or not look at if we don't know if the inspector general is looking at something or not looking at something. For example, I'll get requests from folks in the community to look at something locally. They'll say, oh, we want to come in and conduct an audit of let's just say like this is just an example, the school system, or an organization in our community, or there'll be alleged challenges with the use of finances. And we'll be in conversations with folks in a local community. They will maybe start to begin the process of talking to counselors if they need to take a vote on their local city council to request that we come in, because that's what's necessary if we look at anything locally. Or they'll just be asking that we look at an organization. We don't necessarily know if the inspector general is already looking. So certainly we don't want to duplicate efforts, because that's a waste of taxpayer dollars, right? So we sort of do our best to try to figure out if something's occurring, when it's occurring, the depth to which it's occurring, what exactly might be being analyzed. Is the inspector general's office looking at one portion of what's going to be examined, and maybe we can look at another portion. But it has been tricky to navigate that, in all honesty. And I greatly appreciate the partnership from the inspector general's office. They have been great partners. I can say that this system predates the current inspector general, and when I took office. So he's a new inspector general, I'm a new auditor, and I think that we are both trying to navigate the system that has been set up for many years and exist in that world, and hopefully look to make progress on some of those fronts, because certainly we do not want to be duplicating efforts, looking at the same thing. If he has a unit that's already investigating something, one of my audit units doesn't need to be investigating the same thing, right? So there is room for improvement there for sure. And I think that, hopefully we're going to see that improvement. Our offices have been in conversations about ways to hopefully improve that system moving forward.
So I don't want to belabor the point, but in my example, I reported something to the inspector general's office with a lot of detail, and they came back and they basically said, we don't do that. When in fact, that's their job. So I would like to talk to you about that at some point, not today, but you have my card, and I'd like to follow up this conversation.
We will absolutely be following up. Rick's got my cell, I think, I hope. I know Lucky does.
I don't, but
Yeah. But no, Patrick, thank you very much. And like I said, we're always happy to have follow-up discussions. And I don't speak to, other offices, I don't know what the conversation was, so I'm not going to speak to that particular conversation, but I can say that if you'd like to meet with our office, we're more than happy to meet with you and have a discussion about, what your concerns are, for sure. And it is helpful to know if something is not being done, and that was a definite, so that we know whether something was being done or not being done. Yeah.
Any other questions? And I just had one, and this is probably a biggie, but you touched on it a while back, the T. It doesn't matter who's in power, what party, what governor, whatever, it's just always a disaster. And it seems that what some of their decisions are, and you may be able to relate to this being from Lawrence, but aren't equitable. Like, we see things that happen in Lynn regarding service and all, and we say, man, they wouldn't get away with that in Andover, or a more affluent community. Is that something that your office has looked into for the T operations?
Yeah, we are absolutely considering equity in the current MBTA audit. And to Rick's point, I was born in Methuen and moved around a lot during my childhood. Grew up kind of housing insecure. I shouldn't say kind of, grew up housing insecure. We moved around a lot. My mom was 17 when she had me, so we moved around a lot, lived in Lawrence for many years during my childhood, lived in Methuen for many years, ended up eventually settling in Methuen, buying my home there. Yeah, you know, when I do come to Lynn, we do seem to have a lot of these conversations, right, about equity for gateway cities like ours. And I am absolutely concerned about that. I think that there is a lot of room for improvement. You are right, Rick, in, not putting the blame on any one administration, right? I mean, I would argue that public transportation in Massachusetts has never properly served the residents of the Commonwealth. And this administration does have a lot on its plate right now in working to address those challenges. And our office is seeking to provide assistance in addressing those challenges through the audit that we are conducting. We are, we've been conducting this audit for several months. It takes about a year to a year and a half to complete audits in our office due to the fact that we are required to follow a very rigorous process given to us by the Government Accountability Office. There's a quality assurance process. So even after we have findings, so to speak, and we identify some challenges and some problematic areas that need remedying, we are then required to go through a robust quality assurance process to make sure that those findings were correct, they were accurate, that everything was done appropriately, that all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted. So that takes some time. But that is underway. We are conducting that audit of the MBTA. We are examining contracts. We are looking at safety issues in particular. We're looking at performance and safety. And absolutely, we've incorporated equity into that conversation as well. So please keep passing stuff on to us, as it's incredibly important.
Great, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
I have to apologize. We had an issue with our link and we had a lot more people registered. So we are going to take this and pass it on to our membership. Mike, did you have?
Oh, don't worry, you're good.
Yeah.
I'm
did you
here
have-
for you. No apologies needed.
Mike, did you have any questions from the police station there? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Still on mute.
There you
No,
go.
I am sorry about that. No, thank you very much. It was very informative. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I applaud your energy and your perseverance, and glad that you came down and joined us on Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Valentine's Day. I wore the pink and purple socks, okay?
Yeah.
We got pink, purple, and red happening there. That was on accident though, but I didn't notice it and I was like, oh, good call.
So hopefully we get you out of here in time for you to make your next meeting.
Totally,
And,
totally. And I do appreciate the opportunity. Patrick will be in touch, my friend. And anybody else that would like to contact, to meet, grab a coffee, whatever, please feel free to reach out. Rick's been in my office. We've been, connecting and staying connected on different things, and
Thank you
happy
so
to
much for
work
coming.
alongside of you. Thank you. We can't do our work without you. So please keep telling us about your challenges, identifying areas of concern, so that we can hopefully help to navigate that alongside of you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Great.
you so much.
Thanks.
Thank
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.